Px3 for several reasons. First and foremost, it's an 88 note weighted action digital piano. And one of the really great things about the action on this particular model is that it has the ivory feel keys, so that when I'm playing live, especially if I'm playing in warm conditions, I don't have the problem where my sweaty fingers are sliding around on the keyboard. The ivory feel keyboard actually gives it quite a grippy feel, and it looks far better too. It's a matte finish rather than that shiny white plastic, and it's slightly yellow like ivory, and I think that looks much cooler. Secondly, it's a very compact keyboard. It's very easy to carry. It has no speakers, so it's not heavy. It's ideal for taking to gigs. I can pick that up and carry it quite easily on my own. And it's not going to damage my car either, because it really doesn't weigh a whole lot. And it looks cool with no speakers. It doesn't look like a Wally box, it doesn't look like a Pro keyboard. But the thing I like about this model is it's virtually 5 different instruments in one box. Firstly, we've got a digital piano, an 88 note weighted action digital piano, which is clearly what we want first and foremost. Secondly, it's a fully programmable synthesizer. Thirdly, it's a MIDI controller, so I can control all my external MIDI devices right from the panel here. It's also a DSP effects unit. It has 64 completely programmable DSP effects built in. And last but not least, by all means, is that it's a MIDI file player. So I can play MIDI files directly from my SD card. There's no load time, I just put it into card player mode on the panel here. The titles show up in the screen, I can select which title I want, and just hit play. Money wise, I'd be looking, well, I said that it's basically 5 instruments in one. I think that to buy a reasonable quality instrument in any of those categories, I'd be looking at $1,000 each, so I'd be looking at least $5,000 to buy what I've got here for $16.99. The reason that this model is different from virtually any other digital piano or stage piano on the market, especially in its price range, is that firstly it comes with its own bank of awesome inbuilt tones. So you've got all your pianos, your electric stage pianos, things like Rhodeses and Whirlies, clavinets, vibes. We've got organ sounds, strings, any instrument category that you want, that's going to be there. And they're available just at the press of a button. You can have any sound that you want straight away. Secondly, I can assign 4 individual zones on this model, which most stage pianos can't do. Generally you're looking at 1 sound, 2 on some. On this particular model I can assign 4 zones, so I can have 4 different tones ready to go, and I can have those 4 zones routed to either the internal tone bank of the piano or an external MIDI device. So each individual zone can select its tone from the internal tone bank or from an external sound module or computer. So that's awesome. Or both. So I can have 4 zones all sounding at once from the piano. I can bring in the other 4 zones from my external MIDI devices, and I've got 8 sounds. If I add another external MIDI device, I add another 4 sounds. So now I've got 12, so on and so on. So I can actually stack sounds up and create huge orchestrations that way. So that's an awesome thing. I can have 4 zones, control all the volumes individually, the EQs can all be controlled individually. I can assign a separate DSP effect to each one of those zones. So it might be that for some reason I want to use the same tone on each zone, but assign a different effect to each zone. So it's as if I'm using 4 different sounds, when in fact I might just be using 1 sound with a different DSP effect each time. Also, as I mentioned earlier, this is a fully programmable synthesizer. So I can go into the synth bank, and then over on the left hand side here I can see all the parameters that I can play around with. So I can change the attack of any sound, I can change the release of any sound, I can change the filter, the cutoff, the resonance, anything. Anything that I would normally do on a synthesizer, I can do here. Okay, so what I'll do here, I'll start with zone 1, upper zone 1, and I'll choose piano. So when I play the keys now, I get my piano sound. What I'll do now is I'll assign synth strings to upper zone 2. To bring that zone 2 in, I simply hit the layer button. So now I've got piano and synth strings. As you can see, the PX3 has an awesome ability to combine tones with effects, to route zones and assign different volume and EQ settings. As a gigging musician, I need to know that when I go to a gig I can recall all of my settings, all of my performance patches at the touch of a button. On the PX3 I can store all of my settings, so I do a little bit of work before I go to the gig. I store them as a registration as is described on the PX3, and then when I actually go to the gig I'll put the PX3 into registration mode. I have 64 presets available where I can set all of the sounds that I might want for that gig, and I can just recall them one at a time.